Most people think competing in music streaming is impossible because the market already has giants, global platforms, massive catalogs, huge budgets. So how can a new company compete? How can a startup enter a space dominated by global players and still raise funding and still grow? That's where Boomplay comes in. So the real question is, how did Boomplay raise funding and compete in music streaming? Because inside that journey are powerful lessons every founder needs to understand, especially if you're building in Africa. In this video, we're going to break down how Boomplay started, how they raised funding, how they scaled, and how they competed against global platforms. Before we go further, if you enjoy content about startups, tech, and building real income, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like this video. And make sure you stay until the end, because toward the end of this video, I'm going to share something extremely important that most founders overlook, and it could completely change how you approach building your startup. Now let's get into it. The story of Boomplay starts with challenge. Music streaming was already competitive. Global platforms dominated the space. But here was the gap. Africa was underserved. Local music was growing fast, but access to African content was limited on global platforms. Now here is the first lesson. You don't always need to beat global competitors. You can outfocus them. Boomplay focused on Africa, local content, local artists, local users, and that made a difference. Now let's move to the next stage. The idea. Boomplay wanted to create a music platform built for African users. Affordable, accessible, relevant. Now, here is something important. They were not just building a streaming app. They were building a cultural platform. Now let's move to building the product. Boomplay offered music streaming with a strong focus on African content. But here is what made them different. They adapted to local realities. Offline listening, low data usage, affordable pricing. This made the platform more accessible. Now, let's move to something critical. Distribution strategy. Boomplay partnered with smartphone manufacturers. This allowed the app to come pre-installed on devices. Now here's the key point. Distribution can be a competitive advantage because users don't need to search for your product. It's already there. Now let's move to traction. User growth. As more users discovered Boomplay, downloads increased, usage increased, engagement increased. This created momentum. Now here is something important. Content drives engagement, and engagement drives growth. Now let's move to funding. Raising capital. Boomplay attracted funding because of a large user base, strong engagement, clear market focus. But here is the key. They didn't try to compete globally from day one. They dominated a niche first. Now let's talk about something deeper. Why investors believed in Boomplay? Because they saw a growing music market, strong local positioning, high user engagement, scalability. This made the opportunity attractive. Now let's move to scaling. Expansion. Boomplay expanded across African markets. More users, more artists, more content. This increased their reach. Now let's talk about another key factor. Artist relationships. Boomplay worked closely with artists, providing distribution, promotion, monetization opportunities to strengthen their ecosystem. Now, let's move to something important. Monetization. Boomplay generated revenue through subscriptions, ads, partnerships. Now here's the lesson. Content platforms must balance growth and monetization. Now let's go deeper, because this is where many founders miss it. Localization. Boomplay succeeded because they understood their users, language, culture, music preferences. This gave them an advantage over global competitors. Now, let's move to something critical. Execution. Boomplay didn't stop improving. They adapted, expanded, optimized, and that consistency built momentum. Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Boomplay's success came from focusing on a specific market, building for local users, leveraging distribution, growing user engagement, executing consistently. Now, let's come to the important insight I mentioned earlier, something that can completely change how you think about startups. Boomplay didn't win by being bigger. They won by being more relevant. Let that sink in, because relevance drives adoption. Now here's the final truth. If you are building a startup today, don't try to compete with everyone. Find your niche, understand your users, solve their specific needs. Because when you do that, you don't just build a startup, you build something people connect with. And that is what drives real growth. Just like Boomplay, Rocket,